Have you ever looked at the little money in your wallet and wondered, how can I multiply this into something bigger? Jason, a young man from a small American town, had the exact same thought. Coming from a poor family, he knew the true value of every single dollar. Every time he held money in his hands, he carefully considered where to spend it, making sure not to waste a single cent. But with just $1,000, an amount too small for any major investment, the choices seemed extremely limited. A fancy dinner? A luxury item? Or just saving it? Most people would have spent the money on momentary pleasures, enjoying the comfort of instant gratification. But Jason thought differently. He didn't want to waste it on things that would disappear in an instant. Instead, he wanted to turn this small sum into a seed, something that could grow, multiply, and build a different future. And so, instead of letting the money slip through his fingers like sand, Jason made a bold decision. He invested in gold. It sounded crazy for someone with zero experience, but deep inside, he had an unshakable belief. If I want to change my life, I have to take the first step. Without any financial knowledge, Jason spent months learning about gold prices, market trends, and investment strategies. Every evening after work, he buried himself in articles, watched countless analysis videos, and took meticulous notes. He had no mentor, no guide, just his own determination to understand how money truly works. His friends laughed at him. $1,000? That's barely enough for a weekend trip, let alone investing. Even his family was skeptical. You should save it instead. What can you possibly do with so little? But Jason didn't care. He refused to wait until he had a large sum to begin investing. He understood something that most people didn't. Wealth isn't about how much money you have. It's about how you use it. Quietly, he tracked gold prices every single day, noting the fluctuations, analyzing trends, and comparing historical data. While others scrolled through social media in the morning, Jason was reading financial news, trying to understand what caused prices to rise and fall. He didn't have much money to risk, but he had time, and he was willing to be patient and learn. Over time, he realized something crucial. Investing isn't just about buying low and selling high. It's about training your mindset, controlling emotions, and making smart decisions at the right moment. And most importantly, he understood one simple truth. To succeed, you must first take that leap and start. The first time Jason bought gold, he got burned. Excited and eager, he walked into the market with his $1,000, feeling like a future investor. But what he didn't realize was that he had picked the worst possible time to buy. He jumped in when prices were at a peak, and just days later, gold took a sharp downturn. When he finally sold, he had already lost nearly $200. The sting of failure hit hard. It wasn't just about the numbers. It was the gut-wrenching feeling of being outplayed by his own lack of knowledge. He had researched, taken notes, and tried to be careful, yet he still made a mistake. Doubts crept into his mind. Did I make a huge mistake from the start? Maybe they were right. Maybe $1,000 isn't enough to do anything meaningful. But then he caught himself. If everyone quit after one loss, no one would ever succeed. He reminded himself, every mistake is a lesson as long as I don't repeat it. Instead of drowning in regret, Jason pulled out his notebook and began analyzing everything. Why had he miscalculated? What had he overlooked? He realized the importance of tracking market trends and waiting for the right moment instead of acting on impulse. From that day forward, he changed his approach. No more chasing prices. Instead, Jason became patient, carefully observing market movements, recording every fluctuation, and learning how to interpret financial charts. He followed economic news, listened to expert analysis, and slowly built a real strategy. He was no longer just a hopeful amateur. He was evolving into a calculated investor. Instead of waiting for the perfect moment, Jason chose to invest in gold consistently, little by little. He understood that if he kept waiting until he had a large sum to start investing, he might never begin at all. So, whenever he had spare change left after covering his essential expenses, he set it aside to buy gold, even if it was just a tiny fraction. There were days when he barely had a few dollars left after his basic meals, yet he refused to waste money on unnecessary comforts. While his friends grabbed coffee every day, Jason skipped a few cups to save for another piece of gold. To others, he looked frugal, even stingy. But in his mind, he was making an investment in his future. Every small purchase wasn't just about the gold itself. It was laying the foundation for a solid financial mindset. A year passed, and his gold stash wasn't massive, just enough to melt into a small bar. But the real treasure wasn't in the amount he owned. It was the discipline, the habit of saving and investing that had become second nature to him. He no longer spent money impulsively, but instead learned how to turn every spare dollar into a stepping stone toward financial security. Jason realized that wealth isn't built from a lucky investment. It's built from patience, consistency, and steady accumulation over time. This mindset gave him the confidence to keep moving forward, while many around him were still struggling, unsure of how to take that first step toward financial freedom. One day, gold prices suddenly skyrocketed. Financial news headlines were filled with sensational reports. Gold hits all-time high. Investors rushing to sell, the perfect opportunity to cash in. The market was more chaotic than ever. Everyone was scrambling to sell, eager to lock in profits. Jason stared at the price chart, his heartbeat quickening. Is this the moment to sell? Then he remembered the painful lessons from his first mistake. Greed and impatience are what destroy investors. He had learned that the best decisions aren't made by following the crowd, but by sticking to a clear strategy. So he waited. Would gold prices climb even higher? Or was this the peak? He took his time, tracking the market daily, comparing data, and staying updated on global economic news. He observed investor psychology and noticed something important. Everyone is rushing to sell, but that doesn't necessarily mean this is the best time to cash out. Then, the perfect moment arrived. When gold hit a record high and showed signs of stabilizing, Jason made his move. He sold all the gold he had accumulated over the past year. When he saw the final amount in his account, he could hardly believe it. From just $1,000, through careful planning and persistence, he now had nearly $20,000. It wasn't enough to call him wealthy, but it was undeniable proof of what he had believed from the start. Investing isn't about how much money you have, it's about how you use it. He hadn't won because of luck. He had won because of patience, discipline, and a solid strategy. As he looked at his account balance, a small smile appeared on his face. This was only the beginning. But Jason didn't stop there. He knew that if he just sat on his $20,000 profit, it would eventually be spent. Wealth isn't about hitting one lucky break. It's about how well you manage money and make it grow continuously. He started thinking bigger. If investing in gold could multiply his small capital, what other investment opportunities could do the same, or even better? So he dove into the stock market. He devoured books by investing legends like Warren Buffett and Benjamin Graham, learning how to analyze financial reports and distinguish between long-term investing and short-term trading. He started small, building a low-risk stock portfolio, just as he had started cautiously with gold. But he didn't stop at stocks. Jason also began exploring real estate. He realized that he didn't need hundreds of thousands of dollars to get involved in the market. There were small but promising opportunities, undeveloped land in growing areas, affordable rental units, and even joint ventures with others. He started attending property viewings, learning how to assess location, growth potential, and investment risks, while networking with experienced investors. The more he learned, the clearer it became. Wealth isn't built on one big win. It comes from continuously multiplying the money you earn. Jason was no longer just a casual gold investor. He had developed a financial mindset, one that ensured every dollar he made would continue to work for him. And the best part? He was no longer afraid of money. From someone who once struggled to figure out what to do with $1,000, he had become confident in his financial future. He no longer waited for a big break to get rich, because he was creating opportunities for himself every single day. From someone who once had nothing, Jason had built a solid financial foundation. He was no longer the guy with just $1,000 in his pocket, struggling to figure out what to do. Now, he had a diversified investment portfolio, a sharp financial mindset, and, most importantly, an unshakable belief in himself. There was no magic trick that made him rich overnight. No shortcuts, No lucky breaks. Just small, consistent efforts every day, smart decisions, and relentless perseverance. He had faced losses, moments of frustration, and times when quitting seemed like the easier option. But those very challenges made him stronger, smarter, and more resilient. Jason realized that becoming wealthy isn't about luck or being born into the right family. It's about mindset, habits, and action. Those who wait until they have a large sum to start investing will always be trapped in a cycle of procrastination. But those who take action with what they have, no matter how small, will gradually build the foundation for a successful future. Looking back on his journey, Jason understood one fundamental truth. Starting small doesn't matter. What matters is whether you have the courage to start at all. Because every opportunity, every success begins with one simple decision, the decision to take that first step. Do you have $1,000 in your hands right now? If you do, how will you spend it? A fancy dinner to satisfy a temporary craving? A night out with friends that you'll barely remember tomorrow? Or will you choose to plant a seed for your future? Jason once faced the same question, but instead of letting that small sum slip through his fingers like sand, he turned it into the first step on his journey to financial freedom. Not because he was smarter than anyone else, not because he was lucky. The only thing that made the difference was his persistence and willingness to take a chance. Jason's story isn't a fairy tale. It's not magic. It's real, and anyone can do it. The only difference between someone who succeeds and someone who stays stuck in the same place is the choices they make, even in the smallest moments. Today, you might think $1,000 isn't much. But if you use it wisely, it could become the first brick in building a completely different life. Because in the end, it's not about how much money you have. It's about whether you have the courage to start. So, what will you do with your $1,000 today?